Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Please comment, rate, subscribe, folks. Comment, rate, subscribe, like the videos. Also, share the videos. I want to thank everyone that does like, watch, and share my videos. You folks are the absolute best. Listen, folks, there's a link tree down below. Has links to all my social media platforms. Please go down there. Follow me across all my social media platforms and talk to me because I talk back. Also down there as well as links to all of my YouTube pages. Please go down there, subscribe to all my YouTube pages, and turn on your notifications so when I post content, you folks will be in the know. Listen, folks, Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to sit down and talk about the New York Jets. Oh, yes, we are. Call in. I take live callers on my live radio show. All right? I love going back and forth with you folks about this football team. Now, with that said and done and put to the side, I've come to talk to you folks today about a report that has come out. Man. And it is basically painting the New York Jets as a complete dumpster fire. That the Jets are a disaster. And man, there's a lot of things that are just absolutely going awry. Okay? It's just off the meat rack. Okay? It's out of control over here. And that the Jets got to get it together because if they don't, this thing is going to spiral out of control. A lot of talk. Now, again, this is another report that is brought to us by Zach Rosenblatt, a Jets beat writer, okay, and Diana Rossini. This is another one. Now, we know that earlier in this season, they brought us a bombshell report as well, talking about Zach Wilson. We're going to discuss that too, because that's part of this. Now, keep this in mind, right, with this report that is written, this article that was released on Robert Saleh's birthday. This is Robert Saleh's birthday today. And happy birthday, Coach Saleh. They put this out on his birthday. We also saw Rex Hogan. He's parted ways with the New York Jets as well, so he's out the door. And, this report came out today. Now, keep in mind, man, a lot of this stuff is stuff that we've already heard, okay? But a lot of it is stuff that we've already heard. And some of it is stuff that we've kind of seen, okay? But there's still question marks about a lot of these things in this article. And I'm going to go over some things, some highlights that that caught my eye, okay? Now, first off, I want to start off with the article and the way it paints Aaron Rodgers. Basically, the article is saying that Aaron Rodgers is the general manager of the New York Jets, and Joe Douglas is the assistant general manager. Now, listen, we heard this stuff already, right? Even when we were courting Aaron Rodgers, we heard stories that Aaron Rodgers gave the Jets a list and all this stuff, and he came out and just completely destroyed the notion of that, and that basically they're going to get whoever he wants, and that wasn't necessarily true. Now, they bring in some former Green Bay Packers, some guys that have worked with Aaron Rodgers in the past. Yeah, of course, some names, Alan Lazard, who is terrible, but we all thought he was going to be better than what he was this season. Hopefully, he's better next season, right? He was brought in free agency. They signed him to a $44 million deal. We know they brought in Cobb and Turner and Tim Boyle. But again, was that like such a big deal? Especially even bringing in Lazard, we thought he was going to be better. We needed him to be, a solid number 2 threat for us, and he's awful. But that's what he was brought in to be. So a lot of those guys that were brought in to not only help this offense really get kicked off because of the expectations with Aaron Rodgers, that it was Super Bowl time. They needed, familiarity. They needed guys that were going to come in here and be able to help build with the guys that were already here. But also you want to bring in people that already know your offensive scheme, because again, they have chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. Comes in, things are getting rolling quicker. You teach the guys that are around you too. All right. So that wasn't jarring to me at all. We've heard this kind of stuff before, but then when you look at another guy that was brought in as well, Nathaniel Hackett, some of the things that was said about him kind of threw me back through a loop a little bit. Now, one of them basically said, one of the things was he placates to Aaron Rodgers, that he basically let Aaron Rodgers do his own things, and it's kind of whatever Aaron Rodgers wants, he'll do. He basically lets Aaron Rodgers, run the plays and kind of do whatever he wants to do. Which to me, right, allowing Aaron Rodgers to call his shot isn't as surprising, I guess, as some would believe, because Aaron Rodgers literally built the offense with Nathaniel Hackett. He's one of the architects of the offense. So it's not the same. It's like you have a coach on the field. This guy is the guy that put all of these plays together. He did all this. So he's like another coach. So letting him kind of call his own shots and do whatever he kind of wants to do with, within the flow of the game or whatever it is, it's not that big of a deal to me. But what was kind of jarring was when, and according to sources from Rossini and Rosenblatt, they said that they spoke with some coaches that basically said that one of the coaches had said that he had never seen a team watch less tape in training camp. They also said, other sources, they spoke to players as well, that said that Nathaniel Hackett lacks attention to detail. What kind of was stunning about this was I remember CJ Uzama in camp talking about how they were watching tape every day and going over all kind of like crazy details of the offense, and that they were learning so much from Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers on the field and off the field. And that even though, and again, CJ Uzama, this guy's a veteran tight end. This ain't his first go around. He's been in this league. He talked about how he was learning things, new things every day, even at this point in his career, and he was just stunned and he couldn't wait to just keep rolling. And he was so happy to be in this situation with Aaron Rodgers here and Nathaniel Hackett. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of that, right? The article also goes on to say that Nathaniel Hackett didn't make adjustments very well with his play calling. I mean, we kind of saw that, right? But he particularly didn't adjust well when they played, when they brought in young players like your Jeremy Ruckards and a lot of these younger guys, particularly along the offensive line as well with Newman and those guys. And that is what led to a lot of pre-snap penalties and total penalties. And we know the New York Jets this year were horrific in the penalty category. They were near the top of the league or led the league in penalties. Horrific, right? But I mean, we kind of heard this from players already, as far as like the lack of adjustments. We heard Allen Lazard come out after a loss to Miami. Allen Lazard sucks. At least this season he was awful. And he talked about how they were out-efforted and out-schemed. He said that publicly. This was right after the game. Even Garrett Wilson got up on a podium after the season was over and talked about how this was the worst year that he's ever had offensively, and that offense shouldn't be this hard, and that they lacked adjustments. And he didn't go into super detail, but he definitely told everybody that he talked to the Jets coaching staff, and he stood up in front of them, and they just let him vent, and he went off about how bad the offense was performing, and that this was something that should never happen again. And he looked like someone had shot his dog when he was talking about that. You could tell he was down in the dumps. So that stuff, I mean, that's not really nothing new. We know that Nathaniel Hackett struggled this year with his offense and adjustments, particularly adjusting his offense to Zach Wilson. And it's just, that was bad. But we know that Nathaniel Hackett's going to be here next season. He's not getting fired either. I'm just keeping it real. It ain't happening. All right? Then the article also went on to talk about Robert Saleh. And when it spoke about Robert Saleh, it talked about how once Aaron Rodgers went down, Robert Saleh, kind of went down in the dumps and adopted kind of a woe is me kind of look into the season. And that to kind of advocate for himself with Woody Johnson as far as being brought back as a coach, which I didn't personally think was ever really in question because Aaron Rodgers went down. He basically researched the top coaches in the league. I think it was like Kyle Shanahan and a couple others, and their results when their starting quarterbacks went down. And that helped Woody Johnson really make a decision to bring him back. Here's the deal. Once Aaron Rodgers went down, me personally, okay, I think they sat down, had a meeting, and it was basically like, look, as long as this season doesn't, as long as there's not a full-blown mutiny or there's irreparable damage to this football team, they were going to run it back. Because this team is built, literally, to win a Super Bowl. All they need is Aaron Rodgers. And we're right there on the cusp of it. This defense is a championship defense. With Aaron Rodgers here, we know that this offense would have been way better than what it was this season. So I think short of, again, irreparable damage done, he was going to be brought back regardless. There was also talk about him blaming Zach Wilson, the offensive line, and the wide receiver core for the offensive struggles. I mean, is that a shock? That's not a shock. Again, this is all, if this is true, but that wouldn't be a shock because Zach struggled this year. The play calling was all over the place. He had some good games, right? But with everything that was going up front, especially the offensive line, the offensive line killed this offense this year. And when you talk about wide receivers, Alan Lazard was one of the biggest busts of free agency for us, this past season. So, that's not shocking whatsoever. It's really, really not. But, Robert Saleh, in my opinion, is not getting fired. He'll be back here next season. And I really think that the woe is me thing, if Robert Saleh really shut things down, we wouldn't have looked the way we did against Kansas City. Anybody remember that? Aaron Rodgers was not playing. I don't think we beat the Bills if Robert Saleh shuts things down, even though we lost Aaron Rodgers in that game. We beat Philadelphia this year, mind you, without our starting corners. DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, they were both gone in that game. And Robert Saleh stepped out there with that football team, and we took it to Philly and beat them. So I don't know about that either, man. But I do know that, clearly losing Aaron Rodgers is going to bum anybody out. But I don't think that Robert Saleh woe is me and shut things down. I don't think he did that. The last kind of thing was Zach Wilson. Okay, now we've heard this story about Zach Wilson not wanting to come back out after being benched, him not wanting to play again for the rest of the season because Robert Saleh had talked to him and told him that they would be trading him during the offseason. We've heard this story before, and that was in this article as well. Now, again, there's nothing concrete about that story. And again, I'm not disrespecting Rossini or Rosenblatt. I'm just saying that Robert Saleh kind of came out and kiboshed it. Zach Wilson said, that, hey, that's not how things happen. That's, he kiboshed the story to denied it. Even Aaron Rodgers denied that as well and basically dumped on, whoever was trying to leak things to the media. And he talked about this publicly on Pat McAfee show, and I'll get to that in a second. But according to this article, again, everything with Zach Wilson not wanting to be named the starter again after getting benched, after they got rid of Tim Boyle. According to the article, that saying that Saleh tried to send Aaron Rodgers to talk to Zach Wilson, and that really didn't work, and that soured the relationship between Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, and then kind of the rest of the season because Aaron Rodgers was rehabilitating and stuff, that they kind of lost track with each other. But again, eventually Zach Wilson, according to the article, came around and basically said that he would play because whatever his decision was over Robert Saleh about him not wanting to go back out there and be the starter again got public. So he didn't want that. So he said, yeah, I'm going to come back and be the starter. Again, I don't know how concrete that is. And I don't know if their relationship soured because Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee's show and killed the rumor, said it was nonsense, basically, right? And then turned around and talked about the leaks. Now, in this article, they talk about how when Aaron Rodgers went on a Pat McAfee show and talked about, people leaking stuff out of the Jets facility and going to the media about stuff and making things up, that prompted Robert Saleh to have a meeting with all the staff, with the coaches and things, and he basically lost it on them and said, listen, whoever is talking to the media, if you just come out and tell me that you're the one that's doing it, you won't get in trouble. You won't get in trouble, okay? That's what he told him at first. But as things went on, he basically threatened to take all of their phones so that he could look into their phones and figure out who it was. Like, that's how upsetting that it got, according to this article by Rosenblatt and Rossini. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. There's a lot of things here. I'll tell you the one thing I do kind of believe. There's a portion of the article where it talks about Woody Johnson. Woody Johnson, according to this article, sees all of the things that fans say about the team and the offense and different stuff, and that he would talk to Robert Saleh about what the fans were saying about the team, about the offensive performance and all these things. He would talk about what he saw on Twitter with Robert Saleh and, to try to fix the offensive thing. That's something I will say that I kind of do believe, because we know that the Johnsons are meddlesome owners. We know that. We know that they are clueless. We know that they don't know what they're doing. And they often stick their nose in football business. And when they do, it usually doesn't end up very good, okay? From all the nonsensical splash signings that they would try to make in the offseason, bringing in Tim Tebow, a host of other dumb stuff that they've done, giving Ryan Fitzpatrick all that money when we should have never have done that. They caved to media pressure. They caved to fan, pressure as well. Look at the nonsense that went on with Adam Gase. Chris Johnson called Adam Gase a beautiful offensive mind when the New York Jets were sliding off of a cliff offensively, and that season was just a complete disaster to watch. Then you got, them allowing Mike McCagnon to have a draft and a free agency, and then firing him right after that. The Johnsons are horrific, okay? They're horrific. So that is something I do believe, but there's a lot of things in this article that really have me kind of side-eyeing and kind of have me looking at things like, I don't know. I don't know if this is true at all. But I know that there's a lot of people talking about, Robert Saleh, the Heat's really turning up, that he's going to get fired, and Mike and Vrabel's going to be. I don't think anybody's going to be brought in, and I don't think anyone's going to be fired. I think that these guys are going to try to run it back, and all of these guys are going to be here. Now the Jets have made some changes to, some parts of their coaching staff, right? Their assistant coaches. Like we brought in Tony Dews to be our running back coach. Embry's gone. We're also, talking to a former wide receivers coach from the Titans. We're looking to bring him in as well. So there's things like that. But big major changes like firing Saleh or getting rid of Nathaniel Hackett, I don't think that's happening, man. I don't think it's happening at all. But comment down below. Let me know what you folks think. How do you folks feel about this article? Do you think it's as explosive as everybody is trying to say it is? What are your thoughts about some of these things? What are your thoughts about how it painted Aaron Rodgers, Nathaniel Hackett, Robert Saleh, and Zach Wilson, man? Let me know. Comment down below. Let's go back and forth. You folks have a good one. Peace.